The governor of the central bank, Godwin Emefiele, there, asking a few questions after the communique. Back to the panel of discussants on this here in Abuja. Professor Uche Uwaleke, who is of the Nasarawa State University of the Department of Finance, and of course, China's global headquarters in Lagos. Michael Famoroti from Vetiva Capital, Peter Moses from Kotos Capital, and Robert Omotude from Afrinvest. Peter, let's go straight to you. Give us a sense of your take on what the decision is. Unanimous, 10. I can't remember the last time we had a unanimous to hold, to cut, or to raise by the MPC. This doesn't come as a surprise to you, does it?
Not a surprise at all. Pretty much in line with expectation, even consensus expectations. I think the key takeaways from this decision is the fact that monetary policy in Nigeria is showing a bit of consistency over the last 1 year, and that is actually very positive for the wider economy. If you look at the tone of the MPC before this particular meeting, all through last year, major reasons why we had a hold in all of the meetings that we had and we have the MPR at 14% was the fact that the Monetary Policy Committee consistently reiterated the fact that the primary mandate of monetary policy is actually meant to be price stability. Yes, there has been debate, there has been arguments about the fact that you need as well, to consider growth a mandate, and as well to even look at, employment generation as well. I think the CBN governor actually made a very important point and very clear that we need to allude to, and that is the fact that you have a price stability objective in terms of both commodity prices and the currency price, which is, exchange rate. If you are able to achieve that, and I think that is the phase in which the Monetary Policy Committee is at this particular time, you have an inflation target. Yes, last year, for instance, we had a monetary policy framework that was published by the CBN, and in that monetary policy framework, it was clearly stated what the inflation target for 2016 and 2017 was for the CBN. So far, we do not have anything for 2018, but if we are to go by that particular framework, the CBN has an inflation target of 6% to 9%. Yes, in the last couple of months, we've not seen the CBN governor make a statement that actually allude to the fact that they are still targeting 6 to 9%. But if you look at the tone, it has been a case of empirical studies that have been conducted, within the CBN actually puts it that inflation above 12.5% for Nigeria is actually inimical to growth. And I think the CBN governor has come to that realization, and you can see as well that consistently the Monetary Policy Committee has been reiterating and making calls to the fiscal authorities to step up fiscal injection, which of course, take it anywhere, you have to be fair to the Monetary Policy Committee. There is little you can do in terms of stimulating growth by actually tweaking monetary policy tools in terms of monetary stimulus. Japan has tried it. They've combined monetary policy and monetary easing with fiscal stimulus, with structural reforms, and we've seen the impact. The impact has not been as massive as what Japan economy actually had when it was only a case of monetary easing. In fact, you have an economy, a Japanese economy, where interest rate for certain segments are actually at negative. In other words, you actually have to pay your banks, for instance, in Japan to save. Even at that, the psychological thinking of an average Japanese, still was tilted towards savings and not consumption. If you look at the components of growth in Nigeria, if you look at the expenditure approach to the GDP, it will be shocking to you that the household consumption expenditure actually accounts for approximately 78%. You have less than 15% for investment, capital investment by firms. You have less than 6% for government expenditure and less than 3% for net exports. So if you are looking at stimulating growth in the recent, and you know that, tweaking monetary policy rates in terms of easing will not directly stimulate consumption, but rather capital investment, I think you may actually want to take it a bit slow. I think
Peter, I like this very well, where you're trading into. Let me take this a little bit from you, Peter Moses. Let me take this a little bit from you there and throw this straight to Robert Omotude in terms of what Nigerians would want to see as far as this is concerned, and the governor and the committee, as it were, of course, reading the decisions of the committee to say, look, there should be a reduction in what we share every month as far as FARC is concerned, but that we should stimulate the government, the fiscal authorities should stimulate what you call domestic savings, which will boost household spending. And now he's putting that challenge out there on how not just to have what you call a balanced growth but one that is called a shared prosperity to every Nigerian. And he lays this a little bit on the doorstep of the government and on the banks itself. Talk us through this, Robert.
Well, I think for the Monetary Policy Authority, as much as, Peter mentioned it, as much as their secondary mandate could be to help stimulate economic growth. And of course, the governor also mentioned a bit of it, granting low interest rates, to businesses in order to help economic growth domestically. But, their primary mandate, especially in a kind of fragile situation that we have, will be to ensure to a very large extent the stability in price levels, and the latent part of it, which is not spoken most times, is the exchange rate. As much as this, the committee would, say over and over that price stability is the objective, there is an indirect targeting on exchange rate, which is also helping price stability. Empirical studies have shown that there's a sort of bicausality between the two, exchange rate and then inflation, which one causes the other, And we saw what happened during the recessionary period that we went through in 2016, how much of exchange rate impact we had, how much exchange rate had impact on inflation. So for the general economy and, of course, for the private consumption, what we would expect is not something that the Monetary Authority alone can fix. It has to be the combination of both fiscal and monetary efforts towards ensuring that consumption is boosted within the economy. Within the banking system, there is little that the central bank can do. What they can do is what they are already trying to implement in terms of encouraging the banks, creating, through this anchor borrowers program, encouraging the banks to, lend to the real sector of the economy. But private consumption and lending through the, lending to the private, to individuals for private consumption is the much of what we have not seen. And I am afraid that the current system that we have may not still necessarily encourage it because of the risk inherent in such credits. We saw the prime, the risks that crystallized when lending was done critically to the oil and gas sector, the power sector, general commerce, and we've seen the impact on the books of the banks. NPL is currently above 15% as at October figure that was released. So these are some of the issues that the banks are still, trying to contend with. There is no doubt about it. If we're going to stimulate consumption to grow this economy, as Peter mentioned, there is a significant part of private consumption that drive the economy. But again, credit system has to drive it. But unfortunately, we do not have a system that can encourage the banks, to continue to toe this line. And even if the Monetary Authority, the Monetary Committee had reduced MPR, we would not necessarily have seen the translation, even though the governor mentioned it, that if they considered easing, but easing would not, maybe inimical to growth as much as you're likely to see inflation against that backdrop.
Robert.
Yep.
Robert, let me cut in there very quickly and take this a little bit further. We have about 10, 15 minutes left on this panelists, and we thank all of you for being here. But very quickly, let's get this through to get Michael Famuruti from Vetivo Capital to speak to this particular. The committee has decided that all key rates will be retained pending when the key economic variables improve. In other words, to use this phrase, need more time to manifest. What else do you think this committee is looking for? What level of inflation, GDP, PMI reading, what does this committee want more to see? Because the call is becoming more clarion that we need to cut interest to rates. And economists are speaking all over the place.